So this photo was taken about 1969 or 1970 of me and my wife Kathy before we got married. Kathy, if you raise your hand over here. We got married a year or two later, about a year and a half. And at that point, all of our friends thought it was very cute. They said it's great to live together, of course, because it was 1969, 1970, but why would you ever get married? So it's 54 years in June. This is actually taken in Oakland of an anti-war demonstration. What I learned in Santa Cruz very briefly was organizing, and it was hugely ironic to me that especially more in Eugene, which launched in Lookout. Eugene Springfield started in April. That was a huge organizing effort, and it really connected me back to, and I saw Terry Burke here a couple of minutes ago, back to those early days, and we learned organizing back then, and it had applications in journalism now. And then there were the early Eugene days. This also is me being pied on live radio, KLCC live radio. They thought it would be fun. Not video, but audio at that point. That was my first publication of Willamette Valley Observer, 1975. You can do the math, 50 years, alternative weekly in Eugene. So this is very full circle. I didn't plan it out then that we would end up starting new news outlets in the 2020s in Santa Cruz and Eugene, two places that we lived. Kathy's native Oregonian, but that's how it's turned out. My career, I appreciate what Barry said, and thanks to Barry and Allison for inviting me. It's been a long career. This is actually my sixth or seventh career in journalism at this point. I did analyst work, wrote a book called Newsonomics. And the great thing about that is I had access to the best minds in the business, including people like Mark Thompson at the New York Times, who transformed the New York Times. And a lot of those lessons I was able to apply to the idea of Lookout. So in a lot of ways, Lookout is applied Newsonomics. So we have two lookouts at this point. We launched here November 2020, deep into COVID. Wouldn't recommend ever doing that again, but it worked. We launched in a somewhat better but chaotic time in American society, April 11th in Eugene. So it's 7 months today and going fantastically well in both places. At this point, we are planning 3 more lookouts. We have not decided where. We're talking about the next several years, and we'll tell you why as we go through this. So our goal is nationally to expand the Lookout local network. But as importantly, this is not going to be in every city across the country. We'll see how fast it grows. You got to grow prudently. And really, we are bringing in the next generation or generations of journalists and the business side people who are going to build this business. As importantly, we're trying to create a model that others can look at and say, this can work. It does not need philanthropy ongoing to make it work, very importantly. And that if I put money into it, and there are a lot of people with the wealth to do so, we can reinstitute and revive local news across the country. That's my greater goal. We're getting traction. We're getting a lot of national press. Thank you. We're getting a lot of national press, trying to be modest and understand that we have major gaps in what we're doing at this point. We're filling those gaps, but that's the goal. So this is look at Eugene Springfield. It is 7 months old. I remember Fred Keeley, our mayor in Santa Cruz, came to an event, and we like to have parties. I'll show a couple of those pictures. And Fred said he understood, having been Speaker of the Assembly and a longtime politician in California, the role of a local press. And I still remember his voice broke up, and he said, I never thought I'd see a real newsroom again in Santa Cruz, and he was standing in our newsroom. Now, the other thing he said was, these guys seemed like they helicoptered in, and then all of a sudden we had a real news company out of nothing. And that's really struck me of, yeah, I guess that's true. In Eugene, we stood up a new news site with 16 full-time people in the newsroom in less than a year. And so it can be done. We now employ 28 journalists across the two communities. Our fundamental belief is really, really simple. Every community deserves and requires robust, trustworthy, nonpartisan, and all three of those words are really important to us, local news and information. It can be done. We need it as much, if not more, in the 2020s, and the 2030s are coming in just 5 years, as we did in the past. And the fact that business models rapidly changed is no reason to give up. So what we've done here, and it hasn't been easy, it's easier now in Santa Cruz, far easier. Very rapid start because of what we learned in Eugene. But if you build it and offer it to all of you, enough people will take it up, become members and pay for it. Enough people will advertise to make it work. But it has to be offered. And in 90% of the American cities that don't have it, it's just not being offered. So those of you who are members, I may ask for a count later, should know about this. We're doing a big party at the MA this coming Wednesday. We believe that parties, community organizing, community building are really an important part of this, especially in the digital age, especially coming out of COVID. And so we had a special event a few months ago at the Del Mar. And this Wednesday, we have our 50-year anniversary with very special merch, which I'm very proud of. All members are invited for free. It's on Eventbrite if you have not seen your invitation. And if you become a member before Wednesday, please come. So we are part of a larger national movement. And that movement, this is a map of about 20 new sites across the country. And these sites are funded by largely or philanthropically aided, I'd say, by the Knight Foundation, which is a major foundation in Miami, Florida, and Google News Initiative, which has been a major help in rebuilding news. I can give you a critique of these. A lot of these, and all of them are very known to me. Some are friends. They're trying to do what we're doing with varying amounts of success, and we can talk about why. So let's drop back for a moment and talk about where we are. Now, this looks like this is 1910s, American newsstand, cool. Oh, then we all remember this. You could go into a big city, especially New York or Chicago, you see a newsstand. That was really cool. Remember the international newsstands, they would be exciting. And this, paper boys and paper girls. Did any of you toss papers at the street? Okay, we got at least 8 to 10 people. That is now a vanished profession. There are people in trucks who throw to relatively few addresses. All of this is bygone and very quickly. I worked for Night Rider newspapers for 21 years. They would tell you when they were making 20% profits, it would last forever. It fell off a cliff. So now, where do people get their news? We could spend a whole hour on this, but if you look at this, the 4 major platforms that dominate news consumption, guess what? Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and a 5th one, TikTok. That's where most people get their news. So it is really important, the whole connection between a local news medium and its readers and customers has blown apart in most of the country. And so what we're doing is rebuilding a connection. And importantly, we're using these forms of social media. We're not relying on old forms of only one-to-one communication. Apple News, how many of you use Apple News to get a news feed? About 10 people there. And we're on Instagram here. It's one of the many channels we use. You can see up there, it says we have 36, almost 37,000 followers in Santa Cruz. Mark Zuckerberg has engineered Instagram, so it's very hard to go from Instagram to an actual news article. But the awareness of Lookout in Santa Cruz has greatly increased because of those 37,000. So this map, and you'll see various iterations of this on the internet. And they're called news deserts, which is a term that tends to inflame people. How are we doing?
That okay, it's blocking some.
Okay, I see the okay. Okay,
Right there.
I see it. Cursor. Okay, I'm gonna take this off for a second.
Oh, you shouldn't have to do that.
Well, you need to talk to Apple about that. Let's see. Okay. Are we back up? Not yet. Okay. Technical assistance, please.
Here we go.
Okay, just a lag. So, news desert. News desert inflames all kinds of people. I think I uttered the term once when we were starting in Santa Cruz, and a number of people took exception for it. The term isn't important. What this one shows, and if you Google this term, you'll see all kinds of maps. The red on here, no newspapers at all, relatively few, and in the what we call the empty quarter of the United States. And the yellow, increasingly increasingly numerous, and as you can see, really strong in the southeastern part of the United States and across the Midwest, or really the western part of that, one newspaper. What is significant about this, and I want to talk about this film in a minute, is what that kind of map doesn't show, and that is ghost newspapers. Ghost newspapers are newspapers that are still published. My best example is the Californian in Salinas. Salinas is a very populous community and was written up by Jim Rainey, a reporter at the LA Times, who said, you realize this is a local newspaper that comes out 3 times a week and does not have either a local reporter or a local editor. But they're still making a lot of money on advertising. So there are various instances of ghost newspapers. You're back.
One more thing. I
Yes.
apologize. I just oops. There you go.
Okay, there we go. Okay. Where was I? So these ghost newspapers, they keep the nameplate, they keep publishing, they keep sending you papers. Sometimes after you cancel, because they include you in what they call their rate base, so they can sell your name to an advertiser. That's a predominant form of the news loss. Yes, it's regrettable that there's no papers in places with relatively few population, but there's cities like ours all across the country that have paper that comes out that has very little news in it. There is a documentary, Stripped for Parts, that we showed at the Del Mar just about a month ago. And we had about 100 members come. It was a great discussion afterwards. This film, if you're interested, is on KQED streaming for free. Not on air, I think, or maybe on air once or twice, but streaming through the end of the year. It depicts Alden Global Capital, which is the owner of the Santa Cruz Sentinel, the Miami Herald, and unfortunately, all the papers in the Bay Area, other than San Francisco Chronicle, and all the papers in Southern California, other than the LA. Oh, this documentary, Stripped for Parts, is about Alden Global Capital. And this is the owners of this company are in the Upper East Side of New York, and you couldn't ask for a better kind of mustache twirling villain for a movie. But this company owns all the papers I noted in northern Southern California, Denver Post, and it's buying more. Excuse me. I wrote an article about them when I was doing my analyst work. This is back 2018. And I didn't put the headline on it, the editor did, but I love this headline. And it really pissed off all the global capital. But they're not done. In May, they bought the main paper, the Press Democrat, which had been independent in Sonoma. So they just keep on going. They will never talk to the press. They will never talk to the public, never talk to their readers. Nationally, look what's happening. Washington Post, Jeff Bezos has made a right turn with it. Exodus of probably a couple hundred journalists at this point. The opinion page has turned very proudly and publicly to embrace quote unquote conservative opinion, as opposed to the best opinions to talk about the issues of the day. The LA Times is now using, this is all within these last few months after Trump was elected. LA Times is using AI to give political ratings to their opinion stories. It's nonsense, but it's also a toadying to power. CNN, if you think back to 2016 and 2020, Trump's first term, it was really CNN, New York Times, and the Washington Post that held him to account. Washington Post, still many, many good journalists there. New York Times is doing a hell of a job. CNN is doing a pretty good job. It's essentially up for sale. And there's a good chance the guy who just bought CBS and turned it to the right would buy that as well. CBS, all the changes there. And of course, NPR. NPR's changes, they nationally, they're cut 10 to 15%, but you will feel it, you will hear it in the reporting. There will be, in a sense you'll hear it, in a sense you won't. There will be less reporting. Now, very importantly to what we're doing, and I think for all of our understanding of this, there is a chasm between local news and national news in terms of trust. The politics of the last probably 40 years, probably since Ronald Reagan, we've seen this amazing rise in distrust of every institution, government, religion, press, and it has political purposes. The national press, you ask people about the national press, basically it's very, very low on trust ratings. But local is relatively high. And that makes sense to me, and from our experience, if you write about local issues, these are not national wedge issues. What are our issues here? Affordability, homelessness, etc. And these are things that people can come around to talk about even through the national partisan divides. So against this landscape, we started Lookout, understanding all of this. And one question is, and a lot of you, and I know a number of you in the room, and you'll say, I really like what you're doing with and you don't know what to call it, right? And so I'll come back to this one in a minute. I tried a couple of years ago and said, yeah, it's a new thing. Let's call it something. How about news pubs? And this is a national article I wrote. About half people said it's a great idea. Half people said it reeks of beer, stupid idea. And what we've come to in Eugene is really interesting. We just call it, in all of our promotion, a community newspaper. And a community newspaper that happens to be digital. Everybody, including 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds, knows what a newspaper is. And the fact that it's digital, baby boomers have come to accept it. Everybody's got an iPhone or Android, and people are accessing the news. It makes it a whole lot easier. We didn't figure that out in 4 years in Santa Cruz, but we figured it out in Eugene, which is a virtue of going somewhere else. Do want to go back to this. So it was very cool. This is us at Columbia University. Given the troubles of community at Columbia University, this is now 3 presidents ago who gave us the Pulitzer in the Low Library, fantastic room. We were there to celebrate, and we have a wall in our office, which is wonderful. Thank you. So talking about news pubs, what is it? Well, we're a good newspaper. What do you expect out of a newspaper here? And I'm not sure how well you can read it there, but you can see. You expect to think about the old structure of the newspaper. You got an A section, a metro section, a feature section, a sports section. And these all had different readership. Essentially, in a new digital way, we're creating that. We have excellent arts reporting, food reporting, political reporting, education reporting across the board. And that's what people want. And the idea of Lookout is that we hire enough people and enough professionals to be able to do all that needs to get done. Now, in 5 years, we can say on an average month, and we're still growing in readership, even though there's a lot of news fatigue, news avoidance, et cetera, in the country. We reach 60% of all the adults in Santa Cruz County. Yes, we're a membership site. Membership is vitally important to us, but we get the news out to people free in a lot of ways as well, which creates a larger readership, meeting our mission and providing an advertising audience. The 35,000 people on our email subscriber list are really important to that. We're now doing 19 newsletters a week, about half are neighborhood newsletters and half are morning and afternoon and food and events. And we have that Instagram presence. What I'd ask you to do if you are a Lookout reader or becoming one is get our app. The app we launched last fall, and it now, because people love it, it's very fast, very easy, very browsable. It is now contributing more than 30% of all of our reading in Santa Cruz. And in Eugene, because we launched it when we launched the site, it's almost up to 50%. This is really important to us overall, but especially in this age when we all are going to Google and seeing these little AI overviews, and you're saying, oh, that's actually pretty good. I don't need to click through to an actual site. So use our app, download the app for free, use that, get the newsletters. Importantly, we have a hybrid model. There's a lot of content that's for free. Big news, certainly all that whole month or 3 months of the storms, all election content is free. Big stories, big breaking news is free. We also have our classroom program, which is 4 years old. The idea here is all students need to be brought into, but especially high school students, local news, understanding the issues of their community as they become voters. And then we do a lot of work with nonprofit groups in every way. I take that for schools. So schools, they're coming. They're actually going to grow up and they're going to be sitting here someday. Amazingly enough. The Spanish language stuff is really interesting. We started this beginning of the year. As the crackdown began and we ran an article early on, I think early March, about ICE grabbing somebody off of the street, Market Street in Santa Cruz. And we have followed the crackdown and all the fears there. We immediately started publishing all of those stories about the crackdown in Spanish. And our next goal is to publish the entire site in Spanish. We hope to be there within a year. Mentioned the app, newsletters. Go to the newsletter page. Neighborhood newsletters are something you won't see anywhere else. That's something we invented. I think we have 8 of them in Santa Cruz. And they are 5 days a week on news of your neighborhood and then information on planning and traffic and schools and that kind of stuff. But what we're doing is fundamentally good local journalism. And I'm just going to run through this, and I want to make sure I leave enough time for questions here. So accountability journalism is the key. That's not the only thing we do, just like the daily newspaper. That's not the only thing you went to a daily newspaper for, but it's core. It's why I'm a journalist and why I've been doing this for 50 years. So we've done a lot of accountability journalism over time. One of the gnarliest issues here at pesticides in the Pajaro Valley, we are staying on that issue. It is absolutely absurd what's going on here. Elections coming again next year. We do wall-to-wall coverage of elections. Homelessness, we've seen some progress, we think, on that. Huge issue here, and of course, affordability, huge issue. The diversity concerns, we get a chance to decide who are the sources, who are the faces in Lookout, and we really pay attention to that. And I think we've done a decent job, and we'll continue to do better. The face of the city is changing. If you've driven along Front Street lately or downtown, or if you drive in from where we live in Aptos and you're coming over the bridge, you go, my God, it really happened fast. And it's solving a housing problem. We think we're trying to determine, does it really help solve that housing problem? but all the feelings that people have about Santa Cruz and the cool, unique place it has been and has changed. Wallace Bain has led a lot of that coverage. Community voices, opinion pages are really important. Jody Beal, who teaches up here and is also our opinion editor, has done a great job, and we have a lot of plans for next year as well. Community briefs are important. We're doing those increasingly as well. How many of you know Lily Belly's work, food work? So she is, if you are interested in food in Santa Cruz County, she is on top of it, and she is very popular with our readers. And then we try to answer people's questions about things that are uniquely local with Ask Lookout. So what's this business model? People ask this a lot. I'll make it pretty simple here. We are like news publications for 200 years. We get money from readers, not subscribers. We call them members, but it's essentially a subscription. There's no such thing as single copy in digital, but they are members. And we get money from advertisers. And that's what has supported journalism for a long time. It's the same two things, but in the digital world, we do it really differently. And these companies that have largely failed on a local level did not make that transition. So let's just give you a brief sense of growth. Growth is really important. And on the left-hand side, you can see that we have continued to grow the audience here in Santa Cruz County up to that 60% of adults year after year, now into what'll be our 6th year. And importantly, earned revenue, which is membership and advertising, has continued to grow as well. Our model has been to take philanthropy for investment capital, and then run as fast as we can to earn our way and make sure there's an institution that lasts in Santa Cruz. What does it take? It is basically models. Our models are really good and they're getting better, and we're learning a lot. Investment, the philanthropic capital that I've talked about. And the main thing is people, as it is in any institution. Here's our Santa Cruz team, all full-time professionals. So I have joked with Bonnie Lipscomb at the city. We are an economic development engine for the city of Santa Cruz. They need jobs. We've created jobs. And we will tend to pay for journalist jobs 25% or more than the daily newspapers are paying. We're trying to get the right kind of journalists for you all who you can trust and who have stayed with us. Eugene Springfield is about 50% bigger in population. It's been a real learning. It's also been a good market in terms of revenue for us. And the team there is even bigger. So between this, as I said, about 28 journalists we are employing. And I think we, in 16 we hired in Eugene, I think was more than any other single entity in the United States last year. This is Ashley Harmon, our chief of staff. Hired her at 27, now 31. And she's indicative of, she's given a presentation here last month. We went to a conference in Chicago of very important to bring the next generations into this. Hugely important to do this. So who pays the journalists? It's very simple. You do. 70% of all of our expenses are people, and vast majority of that is journalists. Now this is flipped from, and you can see without having a degree in economics, the problems of the print newspaper industry. The print newspaper industry, when I covered it, 12.5% of their expenses went to pay journalists. 87.5% went elsewhere. That was a core problem, and the internet found that problem. So we're a digital disruptor. We're using all these digital means, sometimes with difficulty, like this morning, but you use these, it worked 9 out of 10 times and you keep going. And so we have membership. We have a monthly membership, $17, $165 for annual membership. And we have just started, in fact, last week, a new membership tier called Changemakers for $250. This is borrowed from our experience in Eugene, where a lot of people said, I'll give you $250 to be a founding member and not just $180 to be an annual member because I really want to see this work. Here, what we're saying is this money helps us with, number one, impact journalism. Number two, it helps us with bilingual, and then Lookout for teachers, which I'll talk about in a second. Helpful QR code. Always important. Newsletters, sign up for newsletters. All the newsletters are free. Those of you who get them, please share them with friends. That's how we get people to know about Lookout. Our fundamental mantra is show up. This is, yes, it's about local news, but our mandate really is to make Santa Cruz County a better place for all who live here. The main way we do that is news and local news, but it's also through a lot of community involvement in all these kinds of ways. All the people we have who interact with the community all the time, Lookout listen sessions, small group sessions, community forums, talk about that in a minute, media partnerships with civic partners to help them with their events. And so what we've been able to do is build fairly fast ramping awareness in person and digitally. It is about community events calendar, civic partners program in both cities, where we have special relationships that help these community organizations with their fundraising and events. And we'll see a lot of this next year. This is at the Paradox. This was I think this must have been the county supervisor. Manu is there. And we do a series of these. We moderate these. We fill this. It's a free ticket. It's ticketed. 200 people at the Paradox. And this and other events drew more than 400 people on Facebook Live. People are hungry for this kind of engagement, and especially at election time, for not just hearing a speech by a politician, but having that politician challenged by their opponents and by our moderator. Thank you. We're not remote. This is the newsroom in Eugene. Both of them, we believe community newsrooms need to be in person. And our journalists actually really appreciate it. When we hire people, we tell them that. Some people out of the COVID age will say like, well, can I be remote? And say, not for us, sorry. Sure, you can be home any morning or afternoon. It's not a time clock, but that collegiality is important to us. We put up this newspaper history, actually in both cities. It's the Sentinel and some other news entities in Santa Cruz over time. Think about it, the history of a community is really through its newspapers, and now we hope through us. This is Wallace Bain talking actually at one of our parties about our wall. We had a lot of launch parties in Eugene. We had our Pulitzer party, which was wonderful, and we'll have our 5th anniversary next week. The other kind of community involvement comes through funding. So the funding in Eugene was really different. And while it was several people here in Santa Cruz, and they were wonderful, including Reb Beverly, who a lot of you may know, in Eugene, it was really broad-based. It was community organizing. And this is a wall that's about 12 feet high in our office. 40 individuals or couples donated $5,000 or more, and 7 family foundations. So it was really a community effort. When we had our first launch party, I described it as a barn raising because it really felt that way. So into next year, 3 big goals: more impact journalism, I mentioned, Lookout for teachers, and fully bilingual. So Lookout for teachers, what is this? We have been doing, here is Lookout in the classroom. We've been doing Lookout in the classroom for 4 years. Jamie Garfield is our community and student engagement manager. She's done a great job getting that going. And what we've seen is now almost 200 teachers, high school teachers, use Lookout every week in classrooms. As we were learning like how it worked, we kind of knew, but we weren't clear enough that offering access to students themselves wasn't going to do a lot. They're not going to open their phones to anything other than TikTok in the morning, and they're not going to go to Lookout and say, hey, what's happening? But the teachers really understand the local news value, the media literacy value, what a lot of you in this room will know as civics value, and they use it. They use it in their classroom. So Lookout for teachers is the idea of saying teachers are the linchpin in all of this. So now in both cities, what we have launched is a Lookout for Teachers program, and the goal is the same in Santa Cruz County and Lane County. And you like this program. So it's very simple. Provide free, donor-paid, philanthropically paid access for all high school and middle school teachers in each county. And with all the curriculum guides and everything else that we're already producing, we think both it'll have the impact that it needs to have in the schools, and it's a thank you to the teachers. So the good news is in both places, we are about half funded on this. As I said, this new Changemaker membership helps support that. And then we also have online giving for that. And I'm talking to some other larger donors. Anybody that's interested, let me know. These are the kind of things that we're doing every week. So they get all the news, they can use that any way they want, but we're giving them other ways to use it. Journalism scholarship contest, which is really popular. I think we had 100 really good entries last year. Educator newsletter every week. And here is the online fundraising page. It's just under givebutter.com lookout. Coming up soon, it's the 4th year in a row. We work with Second Harvest. This is a awful year of food insecurity all around the country, and getting worse. And we do a double give back program where we cooperate, where we sell memberships, they have a donor, and we get money to them, and we get more memberships. That'll be coming out right after Thanksgiving. And I think that is it. And open for questions, comments, and your experience. Yeah.
Okay.
You want to use
so-
microphone or?
So there's a microphone.
Aha, okay.
Not adding a comment section.
Online comics are hardly available these days. They're out there, but we find very few people read them. I loved them myself, but. What comic would you want? Which one? Oh,
Pickle?
Pickles.
Pickles, yeah, I remember Pickles, yeah.
I just want to congratulate you on this immense amount of content and activity you're doing, so thank you.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, are you nonprofit or for-profit?
We are essentially in between. We're a public benefit company, which is a structure that I happened on almost by accident. So in a public benefit company, and it is a kind of entity in California and in Oregon, not in all states. It says in the bylaws what the purpose of the company is. So it's a mission-driven company. I like to say we are fiercely mission-driven and fiercely business-driven, because you need to be both. But the mission part of it is why I'm still doing it, and why that's the kind of people we try to hire. Public benefit company says the purpose of this company is to supply the news and information needs of the cities that we're in. It's a nice thing in words to have in there. Importantly, down the road, they tell me at some point I won't be doing this. I'm not sure what that point is, but we'll see. At some point, this company could get an offer from a company like an Alden and say, like, let's just get rid of these guys. We'll just buy them. And it allows the board to say, no, this company, even though it might offer us the top dollar, doesn't meet our mission. Now, practically what it's meant is even better, in that we are able to do editorials and endorsements in elections. And my long career in newspapers taught me that was important on a local level. Jody Beal and I spent, I remember, 18 hours in the last election, which was a small one, 18 hours, talking to candidates. And we're saying, here's what we think, in addition to what's in the news pages, separately. You can't do that as a nonprofit. And also 2 other things. One, we were named Small Business of the Year by the Chamber of Commerce in Santa Cruz in 2022. And I'm really proud of that, because it doesn't lessen our coverage of anything in the business community, but it says we're a small business. We're not asking for a handout. We're doing something substantial here, and it's worth paying for. And the last point is, again, thinking of this as an institution built to last, is that we issue and offer stock options to all of our full-time employees, which you can't do, obviously, in a nonprofit. We want them to do their best work. We want to hire and keep the best people and have them have a stake in this company going forward. So that kind of designation, I think, has worked out pretty well for us.
That's great. What just came up for me, hearing you talk and all the good that you're doing for the community is if you were a good candidate for Mackenzie Scott.
Well, if you have her phone number, I'd take it.
Okay.
I would think so, but I haven't got any calls lately. It could be any day.
Hi there, you mentioned the history of the cities being found in your newspapers, and I'm wondering where and how you are archiving Lookout digitally.
So it isn't formally archived. It's a really good question. It's not formally archived. It's all there, right? I've done work with archiving companies, and I understand the real value of that. You go back, 100 years, 200 years, been a lot of digitizing of print papers like the Sentinel or the Mercury News. And so we're there. I think you're raising a good point about kind of the current and future accessibility of it. And we have not, in our busyness, have not really tackled that question. If you have ideas, well, we're open to them.
I've subscribed to your paper for a little over a year and deeply appreciate the in-depth reporting.
Thank you.
Professionalism of your staff. Thank you. And I would like to know what media sources you prefer to read. You've mentioned the ones that have been co-opted or diverted from pure news. And so what would the sources be for you that you would read?
So it's a combination on a national level. New York Times is doing an incredible job. And it is amazing to think, when you look at their app, if you have their app, which is your main way of getting at it, you're seeing 10, 15 stories on that homepage. And it is mildly tuned to you to know what your interests are and give you stuff pro and con on that. They're producing 200 stories a day. Now that's the problem of this thing, right? Compared to that Sunday newspaper. How many of you still get the Sunday New York Times print? Well, we're down to about 8, 9. I mean, it's incredible product. But you do get the sense that serendipity that print serendipity that we prized. So New York Times, Washington Post, still hundreds of good journalists there. Wall Street Journal does a really good job on business. I'll find a lot of stuff through the Apple News feed, kind of anecdotally, for national. Internationally, The Guardian is a great source, especially internationally with what Trump's doing in Venezuela right now. Independent in Britain. And I'd say, we're just wrapped with CNN and MSNBC, depending on the crisis of the day and what we can take. But there's enough stuff out there. I'm really concerned as a journalist. There's a meeting that one of our people is going to in 3 weeks of Reporters Committee for Freedom of the Press, talking about all of these threats, which really haven't been too bad yet, other than, Trump calls the press the enemy of the people for years, and he sued the New York Times and the Des Moines Register, but he hasn't come full throttle after the press. So we are trying to prepare locally and nationally for that at the same time. Maybe he'll be busy with tariffs. I don't know.
So I've been a long-term Sentinel subscriber for years, and every 3 months I have to go through this calculus about, do I go digital or not?
Yeah.
My fear is
Yeah.
that once I go digital, Alden now has access to not just what stories I'm reading, but how long I spend on each one and all that sort of paranoia stuff. So, and where does Lookout fit into that?
So,
No.
sure, on our site, and we're very clear about it, that we don't share any reader's data with anybody else for commercial purposes. Now, the question of what readers are reading, not individuals, but usually cohorts of readers. What are they reading? What are they reading to the end? If you talk about scroll depth, how many of you start a story? Do you get to the bottom or not? Well, that tells you something over time. So these kind of digital signals are important for us in understanding how to improve our work, but it's internal. And Alden will do whatever it needs to do. All they care about really is what that profit number is. They really don't care much about your data right now. But I think what's going to happen is that Alden is going to buy the largest newspaper company in the country, which is Gannett. And Gannett owns 25% of the US press. They are not as dastardly in a public way as Alden, but it's basically the same kind of thing in cutting. I think they're going to buy them, and Alden's going to own 50% of the local press across the United States, of the remaining local print press. So that's why I'm working as fast as I can with what we're doing, but also with other local digital onlys who are serious and ambitious to replace them.
What, if I could just follow up
Yeah.
on that? How much data do you get digitally? Can you tell whether people read the individual stories, whether they went to the end? What do you get back?
We can. Community media companies are drowning in data. You get a lot more data than you can possibly use. And the drill is to figure out in several areas the 3 to 5 to 10 metrics that really make a difference that you can then act on. We have 4 or 5 different sources of this. They're not brought into a common dashboard. So our publishing technology is really good, but in terms of our analytics dashboard, that's not really good. And so we spend some time on it, and it's always a matter, and you always want, with any news publication, you want human editors deciding what's going to happen, but their judgment can be aided by a better understanding of their readers.
In terms of attracting greater viewership.
Yeah.
Readership, have you considered the possibility, have you contacted photographers like Shirel Baylor or Barry Bowman to include the coverage?
Yeah. Well, we talked to Shmuel even back at the beginning, and he is. Shmuel.
Repeat.
Oh, the question is, should we bring on Barry? Are you available? He's drafting you. And Shmuel Thaler is a longtime institution of Santa Cruz Sentinel. And still he is the one rock in that foundation. And a great guy.
So, apropos of news, one of the, since my daughter is a newspaper reporter for AP, I thought I would ask the question that sort of burns the lips, which is control the narrative.
Yeah.
Right, so you know where I'm going with this video.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay, all right. No. So I mean, you pick up a newspaper. Yeah. And you read, and the story of the day is this, right? And the story of the day has been decided by drones, by who knows who. And suddenly it's the story that you read everywhere. You read it in The Guardian, you read it in French, you read it in German, you read it in Italian, you read it across the country, etc. And that story has been specifically created to divert attention from the actual should have been story of the day. So control the narrative means don't think about this when we got it covered, right? So as somebody who has spent most of his life teaching about the Middle East, just like the table, it is just maddening the extent to which very little in the way of actual facts ever get through. And it doesn't take rocket scientists to be able to decide things, what's factual, what's not factual. What your heart says is one thing, what your mind says maybe another thing. And anyway, so controlling the narrative turns out it's something that mostly goes on in the world of literature called prof speak. Right? So there's this Mandarin language that is spoken mostly by professors, and which nobody else is privy to because it's got all these big words in it. And so who the hell knows what they're saying, right? So how do we crack through expertise of that kind, right? And that expertise does not just exist about foreign affairs, it exists about everything. So to do daily news, you have to do that too. So I'm just going to lay that on the doorstep and see where you go.
So there's a lot there, and It's 11:56, so I'll take part of it. It is really interesting. I've been in the news business for 50 years, literally now. I have a lot of criticisms of it myself, and I have as I've gone through it. This idea that there's any kind of conspiracy of people deciding this is going to be the story of the day in the real press, I'm not talking about Fox, but in the real press, doesn't happen. And they are the editors, and I know editors of all these publications, they are trying to come to the best conclusion they can of what the top stories are. There's two big problems in that, as you see. The first one is, I guess it'd be the sociological term would be group think. So it's group think. This is what humans do. So you're asking the question, what are other people covering? You're also asking the question, which is kind of self-replicating, what are people reading today? So that kind of group think does tend to give us very similar stories. And they still fall for announcements. This is how Trump has been able to move his agenda, by keeping announcing things day after day and hour after hour. And so I agree with that in terms of groupthink. But it is, and the algorithms in digital now will tend to reinforce what you're seeing. People are going like, oh yeah, that's like, it's all in front of us, but we can't pick and say. And the technology might actually help us on this. We can't say, here's 10 stories or 10 topics. Here's where I want to go. And I would bet you, like on Mideast, on the best current Mideast journalism, you couldn't find it anywhere at this point in any of the major news sites. I don't know, and I don't know what you may be doing or what may be possible to say in the wider journalistic world, and global, of course, not just the United States, that daily news feed of what's going on in a region I care about or an issue I care about. I think that's a tool. It can clearly be done with the technology of the day. It's a tool that could be done. And I think it's a really interesting idea for news media, large ones, but even small ones, be able to say that to their readers and say, like, what's the path you want to go down? We'll help you go down it. You're raising really good questions.